Cold Heart, a horror story. Prologue, Snow. This story has been preserved in the annals of medical archives as an impossibility. I read about it once, lying in a hospital bed surrounded by the silence of 4 drips. It told of a girl whose body had turned to ice, but still, she came back. She didn't remember what had happened. She simply opened her eyes and breathed. Everyone said it was a miracle, but I know what she brought back with her. I am the one who lay in the snow, and I remember everything. I didn't faint. I died. I'm sure of it because now I know how it feels. First, weight like someone was pouring concrete into my bones. Then, a strange cracking, like the brittle crust of ice breaking under your feet. Only the sound came from inside me. Then silence. It wasn't frightening. It was clean, honest, like home. The snow embraced me, not like a blanket, more like a second skin. It whispered to me, "Don't breathe. Don't be afraid. Be still and you'll hear." And I heard. There was someone beneath the snow. I wasn't alone. A hand touched my shoulder. The fingers were too long, too thin. I couldn't move, but I could feel it caress my face, like a mother tucking in a child. And then it said, "You'll do." When I opened my eyes in the hospital, I was no longer myself. Chapter 1. The warmth doesn't return. My mother held my hand while the doctors scribbled notes on their charts. Her fingers trembled. She stroked my hair, but I knew. She couldn't feel who she was touching. I looked the same, pale skin but intact, hair in place, no bruises, no frostbite, but something was wrong. Tilted like a painting just barely askew. Mom said, in a voice that tried to be joyful, "Anya, you're back." But her eyes betrayed her. She tried not to flinch when she kissed my forehead. I saw the doctors exchange glances. The nurse crossed herself when she thought I was asleep. On the 3rd day, they discharged me. It was February outside. The wind howled, biting and sharp. But I didn't feel the cold. My scarf flapped in the wind. I could hear it, but I couldn't feel it on my skin, as if my body and I were no longer one. Home looked the same. My room, the fox print blanket, the books on the shelves. But the air was different, pushed against me, like the walls somehow knew I didn't belong here anymore. Dad left for a business trip the next morning. Mom tried to act normal. She cooked my favorite meals, blintzes with cheese, pumpkin soup. I chewed mechanically. I swallowed, but I couldn't taste anything, not even salt. I didn't sleep well either. Every dream took me back to the snow. It was calling me. I stopped looking in mirrors on the 5th day, because the reflection lingered. I woke up every night at the exact same time, 3:17 a.m. Outside, the snow wasn't white. It was gray, ashen under the pale flicker of the streetlight. My room was silent, too silent. No ticking clock, even though I checked the batteries. And in that silence, I heard not a sound, but the absence of one. As if something was breathing, but not from this room, from somewhere deeper, beneath the floor, behind the wall, inside the mirror. One night, I decided to follow it. I got up, slipped on socks, grabbed my old camping flashlight with the rubber grip. I walked down the hallway. The floorboards didn't creak. They always creaked before. In the kitchen, the darkness pressed in from all sides. The fridge light glowed softly in the corner. I wasn't hungry, but I opened the freezer. It was empty, except for a layer of fresh frost on the back wall. And there, etched into the frost, prints. Fingers, long wrong, 6 of them, and one set far apart from the rest. I didn't scream. I closed the freezer door, turned off the light, went back to bed. In the morning, my mom told me I was talking in my sleep. "You were calling someone, Anya, or maybe talking to, I don't know." "To whom?" I asked her calmly. She looked shaken. "I don't know, but your voice, it didn't sound like yours." On the 9th day, Lena visited, my childhood friend. She came bundled in her winter coat, clutching a pie and a thermos of tea. I saw her from the window. She stood on the porch, hesitating. I went out to greet her. "Hey," she smiled nervously. "Hi," I replied. We sat in my room. I stared at the pie. She didn't eat either. "Anya," she said softly, "what happened to you? It was just... I cried when they said you were gone. And then you woke up. Just like that." "I know. But you're not the same." I looked at her. She swallowed hard. And I heard it, her heartbeat, speeding up. Not from fear, but from something worse. From recognition. "What do you see?" I asked. "When you look at me, Lena?" She hesitated. And then whispered, "You? And something standing behind you." I said nothing. She left 5 minutes later. The pie remained untouched. It molded in 2 days, rotting unnaturally fast. On the 10th day, I stood before the mirror. I tried not to look directly into my eyes, but the reflection looked anyway. It delayed. When I turned my head, it followed a fraction too late. When I blinked, it stared longer than it should have. And then I heard it. The breathing. Not mine, the reflections. Slow. Cold. Like air escaping from an ancient ice cave. I stepped closer, lifted my hand, pressed my palm to the glass. It mimicked me, a second too late, and I felt a touch from the other side. Cold, wet, 6 fingers. That night, I woke again at 3:17. But this time I wasn't in my bed. I was standing barefoot in the snow. Not white snow, black, ashen, dead. All around were trees. Black, charred, rimed with frost. Still, no wind, no sound. And in front of me the thing, towering, 3 meters tall. Its body withered and stretched, human in shape but distorted. Eyes like holes, 6 fingers, one curling the wrong way. It leaned toward me. I couldn't move. It spoke. "You're almost ready. Who are you?" I breathed. "I am the one who returns, but never for free." It reached out, pressed its hand to my chest. I woke up bleeding from the nose, with frost on my lips. On my windowsill, a snowflake, but the window had never been opened. Chapter 2, The Mirror. I stopped turning on the lights at night. There was no point. The darkness felt thicker now, as if it pressed against my skin, not just surrounded me. The glow of a lamp didn't scatter it. It only deepened the shadows. And in the corners of the room, the air would ripple slightly, like something had just ducked out of view. And the mirror, it began to move on its own. The first time, I thought it was a trick of light. The reflection shifted when I wasn't moving. I blinked. My body stood still. But in the mirror, my hand twitched. My mouth curved upward in a smile I hadn't made. I closed my eyes, counted to 3. When I opened them, the reflection was back in place. Almost. Its eyes were just a little too wide, like it was waiting. I asked my mother to cover the mirrors. She didn't ask why. She just nodded. But I saw the fear in her eyes when she touched the sheet to pin it over the frame. She didn't look at my reflection. Not once. I began to notice other things. The room was always cold, even when the radiators burned red hot. My breath never fogged the window. Not once. My cat, Pushka, refused to come into my room anymore. She would sit at the doorway and howl, low and drawn out, until I closed the door. Sometimes at night, I'd hear her scratching at the floor outside, desperate, as if trying to dig her way in, or trying to warn me of what was already there. The first time I saw the footprints, it was just after I showered. I wiped the mirror with a towel, reflex, before I remembered I wasn't supposed to look. And there they were, bare footprints, small, like mine, but slightly wrong. The toes were too long. The arch was missing. They were wet, and they were walking away from where I stood. I spun around. Nothing. The bathroom was empty, but the mirror still fogged, and in the mist, the prints remained. I told myself I was hallucinating, that maybe I'd hit my head harder than anyone realized, that maybe some trauma had rewired me, that I was seeing patterns in the dark, shadows in the glass. But then the dreams returned, more vivid, more real. Each night, I would wake at 3:17 and find myself not in my bed, but in the snow, always the same place, the ash-colored forest, the dead air, the silence, and him. I had no name for it, not a proper one, not a god, not a devil, not a ghost, something older than all of those, something that had lived beneath the snow since before we gave names to fear. It would speak in a voice that came from inside me, echoing through my bones. The longer you stay, the less you are. Soon you'll forget warmth. And when you do, you'll belong. I tried staying awake one night, terrified of the dreams. I drank coffee, slammed my face with cold water, played loud music through headphones, but I still blinked. And when I opened my eyes, I was standing barefoot in the snow. This time, I wasn't alone. There were others in the forest now. Shapes, people-shaped, dozens, maybe more. They stood between the trees, still as statues, faces turned toward me. Their skin was gray, brittle like porcelain dusted with frost. Their mouths hung open, like they were silently screaming. And in their eyes, frozen wide, I saw a flicker of memory. A teacher, a delivery man, a boy from school who vanished last year. They were real. They had been real. And now they were statues in this realm of eternal snow. And they all stared at me, and I knew why. I was next. That morning, my mother found me standing in the front yard, barefoot, nightgown soaked, snow frozen into my hair. I don't know how long I'd been out there. She screamed, wrapped me in blankets, called the doctor, but I didn't speak, because I was still half there, half in the snow. And behind my closed eyes, I could feel him watching, smiling. When I finally spoke again, it was only one sentence. He wants me to bring someone. Chapter 3, Beneath the Snow. I returned to the crash site, not because I wanted to, but because something in me pulled toward it like a string buried deep in my ribs. Each night in my dreams, the path became clearer. And one morning, I simply woke up with my boots already on, coat half-zipped, standing in the hallway with my hand on the doorknob. My mother didn't see me leave, or maybe she did and didn't stop me. She'd grown silent over the past week, avoided my eyes. Sometimes I'd catch her whispering to herself, as if praying, but without words. The road to the crash site was familiar, but changed. The trees looked different, taller, older. Their trunks were wider than I remembered, and their bark was veined with silvery frost. Even though the sun was out, the air didn't move, and the snow, it wasn't soft. It crunched under my feet like shattered glass. When I reached the curve where it happened, where I had skidded off the road and crashed into the tree, I stopped. The tree was still there, bent, cracked down the middle, but the car was gone. Not towed, not wrecked, gone. No tire tracks, no rust, not even a hint in the snow. It was like it had never been there at all. And then I saw it. Footprints, leading away from the road. Deep, sunken, and strangely far apart, like whoever made them had a long stride. 6 toes. I followed. The trees grew denser. The sky turned gray. There were no birds, no wind, no sound. I walked for what felt like hours, but my phone, when I checked it, said 12 minutes had passed. Eventually, I reached a clearing. At its center was a hole in the snow, a perfect circle, as if someone had carved a manhole into the earth and peeled it open. But beneath the snow, nothing. No dirt, no stone, just darkness, endless and absolute. And from it came the voice, not loud, not whispering. In my mind, you came back. I tried to step away. My legs didn't move. You brought me your body once. You left it in the snow, but you came back before the change was complete. That was a mistake. I could feel the cold rising up from the hole. Not just a temperature, a presence. It slid over my skin, entered through my pores. I gasped and inhaled frost. My lungs burned with it. You still breathe, but that can change. Return to me and I will make it painless. Or stay and spread me further. I turned and ran, or tried to. The snow gripped my legs like wet cement. The air thickened, every breath like swallowing smoke. I don't remember how I got back home. I only remember opening the door and seeing my mother on the floor. She was frozen solid, face down, mouth open in a silent scream, frost on her eyelids. The heat was still on. The radiators glowed, and yet the floor beneath her was covered in thin ice. as if the cold had poured through her body and left her empty. The doctors said it was a heart attack, some rare condition, sudden, unpreventable. They never mentioned the ice. They never questioned why the freezer was now warm and dripping, as if the cold had been pulled out of it. At the funeral, no one looked me in the eyes. They stood in coats and gloves, clutching flowers, their breath puffing white in the air. Mine didn't. My cousin whispered to someone, "She doesn't even cry. She's like a statue." And I was, because I couldn't feel the sadness, only the cold. That night, I woke again at 3:17 a.m., but this time I was in my bed. And yet, the sheets were wet with snow. And on the floor, leading from the door to my bed, 6-toed footprints. Chapter 4, Cold Traces. The first person went missing 3 days after my mother's funeral. A boy from the street over, Matvey, 6 years old. Last seen building a snowman in his yard. The neighbors said he wandered off, maybe slipped into the woods. The police dragged dogs out. Volunteers scoured the forest paths. They found his boots. One mitten. No tracks. No body. Just a circle of melted snow, perfect and round. And within it, nothing but soil, wet and black. I watched the search from my window. Something about it made my chest ache. Not sorrow, but a strange hunger. Like I had lost something too. Something I didn't know I needed. They came to question me. 2 officers. One older, one new. The younger one couldn't meet my eyes. "You were the last person to see Matvey. He liked to visit you, right?" I nodded. "Did you see him that day?" I lied. "No." He shifted uncomfortably. "Did you hear anything strange? See anyone near the house?" I shook my head. His partner stared at me long and hard. His fingers tapped against the table. He said nothing, but I saw it, the doubt behind his eyes. Not suspicion, fear. That night I dreamed of Matvey. He was standing in the forest of ash snow, still wearing one mitten, looking up at me, eyes wide, not frightened, not sad, just lost. Behind him stood it, not the tall thing I had seen before, but smaller, narrow, hunched, its spine arched backward, ribs visible through skin the color of dead ice. His hand rested on Matvey's shoulder. It smiled at me with no mouth. "You're doing well," it said. I screamed, but no sound came out. I began finding things in the house. Wet footprints, melted puddles on the floor, frosted doorknobs. My closet door would be open in the mornings, though I locked it at night. The mirror behind the sheet would sometimes bulge outward, as if something inside it was pressing against the glass, trying to remember how to escape. The warmth in the house faded, not gradually, in pieces. The kitchen light would flicker and go dark for a second. The stove would stop heating, then click back on. My room dropped to near freezing even as the rest of the house stayed normal. And worst of all, I stopped noticing, until I walked into the living room one day and saw a layer of frost on the couch, and realized I had been sitting there for 2 hours. I stopped going to school. They called. I didn't answer. The teachers left voicemails. I deleted them. No one came to check on me. They were afraid. 3 more people went missing. A teenager, an elderly woman, a man walking his dog. Each disappearance followed the same pattern. No struggle, no blood, no trail. A perfect circle of disturbed snow. A strange cold that lingered days after. The media called it the winter phantom. Locals blamed wolves. The city brought in psychologists. No one found anything. But I knew. They were taken. Not by force, but by invitation. And I was the one opening the door. Sometimes I would black out. I'd be lying in bed, blinking at the ceiling, then wake up standing in the woods, mouth full of frost, toes blue, fingers raw and red. And sometimes I wouldn't be alone. I'd see someone next to me, a stranger, standing dazed. They would turn to me and ask, "Where are we?" And I'd see something move behind them, tall and quiet, and I would turn away before it touched them. The next morning, I would read the name in the paper, missing, and feel nothing, just a deep, dry chill that pulsed under my skin like blood made of snowmelt. Then one day, I smiled, in the mirror, unintentionally, Not my face, its face, smiling through me, and I saw the shape in the reflection, just behind my shoulder. Watching, growing more real, more present. Chapter 5, Not Me. It started with the notebook, a small, leather-bound journal I didn't recognize, tucked between the books on my shelf. No title, no label. The handwriting inside wasn't mine. It was close enough to mimic, but the curves of the letters were wrong. Too neat, too deliberate, like someone imitating my hand from memory. The entries were short, sometimes only a sentence, always dated, and none of the dates matched my memory. January 14th. She saw me today. Her face was wrong with fear. Pleased me. January 19th. I moved through the kitchen again. The cat screamed. I love how they know first. February 2nd. He was light. The boy. I carried him gently. He sleeps now in the stillness. He is learning not to breathe. February 5th. I will use her voice next. The next page was blank. And then, new ink. Fresher. Not written by a hand. Scratched in with a fine point. February 6th. She knows. I dropped the notebook. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor, blanket around my shoulders. Every light in the house turned on. The shadows still came. On the ceiling, beneath the couch, in the reflections on the window pane, even though there was no light behind me. The mirror, still covered with a white cloth, moved at 3:17 a.m. Not shook, not trembled, moved, as though someone pressed from the inside, making the sheet rise and settle. I didn't go near it. The next morning, I found a second journal. This one in my closet, behind a shoebox I hadn't opened since I was 13. It was blank at first, but when I ran my fingers over the pages, letters began to emerge beneath the surface, like frost rising on glass. I didn't understand the symbols. Not Cyrillic, not Latin, something older. The characters felt cold to look at, as though reading them pulled heat from my skin. On the inside cover, one phrase had been scrawled, this time, unmistakably in my handwriting. If you read this, it's already too late. I looked into the mirror that day. I shouldn't have. I took off the cloth, stared into the glass, and my reflection was waiting, smiling, not wide, not manic, just patient. It raised its hand a fraction of a second before I did. When I blinked, it didn't. When I turned away, it stayed. And behind it, I saw movement, shifting shapes. Not in the room, not in the reflection. Behind the reflection, a world made of ash snow, frost-covered trees, and eyes. So many eyes, and all of them staring through me. That night, I heard someone whispering in the hallway, a child's voice, and then an echo of my own. Not a recording, not a trick. My voice, but cold, stripped of warmth or breath. She's still pretending. Another voice replied, not for long. When I looked in the mirror the next morning, I didn't see myself. I saw my room, empty, no bed, no me, just frost creeping along the glass, forming a circle, portal, and then a single word appeared, written in the fog from the other side. Open. Chapter 6, The Passage. I didn't open the mirror. I didn't touch it, didn't breathe on it, didn't even look at it for the rest of the day. But that night, it opened on its own. It started with the air, not cold, still. So still that even my own breath felt unnatural. I could hear my heartbeat in my teeth. Then came the sound, faint, wet, like ice cracking underwater. I turned to face the mirror, still covered, still nailed to the wall. But something was wrong. The sheet was sinking inward, as if the glass beneath it had liquefied, softened, become something porous, breathing. I stepped back. The lights flickered. The bulb in the hallway popped with a shriek. The shadows on the wall began to stretch, reaching toward the ceiling like grasping arms. And then the cloth began to slide off, slowly, without wind, without hands. It folded to the floor like something discarded, and behind it, the mirror was no longer a mirror. It was a whole, perfect, vertical mouth. Framed in frost, its surface rippled like cold mercury. And inside, I saw it, the world beneath the snow, Not a reflection. Not a dream. A doorway. Ash snow fell sideways. Trees loomed tall and skeletal, vibrating in a wind that didn't exist on this side. And through that portal I saw figures moving. Slow. Crooked. Things shaped like people but not human anymore. Hollow. White-eyed. Souls trapped in ice. They saw me, and one of them reached toward the glass. Their hand pressed to the inside, leaving a 5-fingered impression that lingered with frost. But the fingers began to spread, stretch, split. 5 became 6. I ran, down the stairs, through the hall, every room colder than the last. My breath fogged, then stopped fogging entirely. I reached the front door, but it was frozen shut, not locked, encased. Thick layers of ice webbed across the frame. My fingers stuck to it when I touched the metal. The key snapped in the lock. From upstairs, I heard the mirror crack, not shatter, fracture, and something stepped through. I didn't see it at first, only heard it, the sound of bare feet on tile. Too slow to be human, too steady to be alive. Each step left a thin film of frost. The floor hissed beneath it. I backed into the kitchen. The fridge light blinked once, then died. And then it stood in the doorway. Me, or rather, something that wore my skin like clothing. Its eyes were too wide, the smile too soft, its neck slightly crooked, like it didn't quite understand how to carry the head. Tilted, and said, in my voice, finally. I grabbed the nearest object, a knife, and pointed it at it. It didn't flinch. You don't need that anymore, it said. I'll take care of everything. You were cold, but I am colder. It stepped into the kitchen, and every surface it passed, counter, handle, the microwave door, froze over in a crust of frost. I backed away. My knees hit the cabinets. I nearly fell. It stood inches from me now, breathless, smiling. All you had to do was sleep, it whispered. But you kept waking up. It raised a hand, fingers stretching slightly longer than they should, shadows trembling beneath the skin. Then, a sound, a crash from upstairs. We both turned. Footsteps. Someone else was in the house. It frowned, tilted its head again. No, she's early. I took the chance. Ran. Upstairs, the mirror was wide open now. The air sucked inward like a vacuum, ice crawling along the walls. And in the center of my room stood Lena, my childhood friend, pale, drenched in sweat, eyes wide. Anya. What the hell is happening? I saw you. In the street. But then, this place, your house, it's freezing. I grabbed her. Don't look at the mirror. Don't speak. Don't listen. Behind us, the thing in my shape began to climb the stairs. Each step cracked. It wasn't rushing. It didn't need to. It already knew the house better than I did. Lena clutched my hand. What is that? Is that you? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure anymore. The mirror hummed, a low, magnetic sound. From it came whispers, voices calling her name now. Not mine. Lena, Lena, Lena. And she turned. Just slightly, just enough. And the mirror pulled. Chapter 7, The Splinter. The moment Lena looked into the mirror, I felt it happen. A split. Not a clean break, more like tearing fabric. Something inside me ripped, and I felt lighter, as if something had been taken, not from my body but from my identity. Lena gasped. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating. And then she stepped forward. Not walked, was pulled. Her feet scraped across the floor, her body jerking toward the mirror like a marionette dancing on wires I couldn't see. I lunged and grabbed her by the waist. She screamed. The force tugging her forward was cold. Not temperature, but a cold like pressure, like gravity made of frost and voices. The glass in the mirror warped, like liquid mercury, reaching toward her like a tongue licking air. Behind the surface, I saw them, the others. The boy Matvey, the man with no dog, the woman with frozen eyes. They stared with faces pressed to invisible walls, reaching, palms out, screaming silently, their mouths open in frozen loops. Their breath fogged the other side of the mirror, and on that fog, new symbols formed. She chooses. I pulled harder. Lena's skin was white, her veins glowing with something pale and blue beneath. Her lips cracked as she fought to scream again. And finally, the mirror snapped shut, like a slammed book. The pull vanished. Lena collapsed into me, shaking, sobbing. Her fingers dug into my arms. What the fuck was that? What is this place? But I couldn't answer, because behind me at the top of the stairs, the other me stood watching. Calm. Still. A single trickle of black blood ran from her nose, like a cracked porcelain doll. She looked at Lena, tilted her head, and whispered, "You'll do." I got Lena out of the house. Somehow. I don't remember the stairs. I don't remember the hallway. I only remember slamming the front door behind us and hearing it howl on the other side. We ran. Through ice-crusted streets. Past houses with windows fogged over. Past faces in curtains that quickly vanished when we passed. Lena didn't ask me where we were going. She just followed. We ended up in an abandoned train station on the edge of town. A place we used to play when we were kids. It was always freezing inside, but now it felt warm by comparison. Lena sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. I paced. I felt the cold inside me now, deeper than before. A wrongness, as if something had shifted in the earth and I wasn't attached to it anymore. Like I had no weight, no gravity, just the echo of a body. After an hour, Lena spoke. "That wasn't your reflection. I know. And you're not you. Not fully." I looked at her. She wasn't accusing. She wasn't afraid. She was simply observing, naming the truth out loud. And I had no lies left to give her. "Part of me never came back," I said. She nodded. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. "And what's still here is becoming something else." We didn't sleep. Outside, the snow began to fall. Heavy, slow flakes that didn't melt. At one point, I stepped outside. Every flake that touched me remained. Didn't dissolve. Didn't vanish. Just clung to my skin like white insects, and I had to brush them off. When I looked down at my footprints, they didn't melt either. They froze deeper, permanent. Back inside, Lena stared at me with eyes I didn't recognize. And then she asked the question I had been afraid of. "How do we stop it?" I had no answer. The mirror couldn't be broken. I tried. The glass always returned. The symbols couldn't be erased. The more you touched them, the colder your hands became. And the other me, she was learning. Every hour, she moved more fluidly, smiled more naturally. Soon she wouldn't need the mirror at all. Soon, there would be two of me. Chapter 8, Fracture. They say your body is made to heal itself. But what if your soul is broken? What if the thing that made you begins to slip, fracture like hairline cracks in a mirror, invisible at first until it shatters? I think I passed that point already. Lena doesn't sleep anymore. She sits beside me with her back to the wall, always watching. She doesn't trust that when she blinks, she'll still be with me, and not the one who walks through the frost with my smile. Sometimes I catch her looking at me too long, and I know what she's thinking. Are you still the right one? I don't blame her. I wonder too. The mirror no longer matters, because the other me, is no longer inside it. She's loose. People see me where I haven't been. A girl walking barefoot through snowdrifts at night, knocking on windows, staring into nurseries, whispering through vents. And when I say it isn't me, they don't believe, because she looks just like I used to look, before the cold. I tried to write a journal, to remember who I am, but the pages started changing. I'd write, "I am Anya Mikhailovna. I am 17. My mother died 2 weeks ago." Then I'd return an hour later, and the words would rearrange themselves. "She is Anya Mikhailovna. She is 17. Her mother has been reclaimed. The world around us is losing its grip. Snow no longer melts. It clings to windows, to ceilings, to mirrors growing inside out. People walk slower. Their breath fogs behind them but not in front. Children cry at shadows their parents can't see. A man in the supermarket stood still for 3 hours, staring into the freezer section. When they touched him, his skin cracked. Lena and I returned to my house only once. It was a mistake. We stepped into the hallway, and immediately, The warmth vanished. Frost along the walls. Condensation on the ceiling, but dripping upward. And upstairs, in my bedroom, we heard laughter. My voice. Playful. Wrong. Lena froze. Is that you? I shook my head. And the voice from above answered. I'm the one she would have been without warmth. We never made it up the stairs. The walls began to pulse. The mirror in the hall rippled, and from it stepped me. Wearing my old coat, the one I'd buried after the crash. Its eyes were black, not shadowed, black, like they had been scooped out and filled with snowmelt. Lena grabbed my hand and whispered, "Tell me something only you would know." I turned to her. My voice broke. "You used to pretend the rust on the old train was a treasure map. We followed it until we ended up lost in a thunderstorm. You cried, but I said it was just the rain pretending to fall upside down." She stared at me, then nodded, and ran. We didn't look back. The other me didn't chase us. She didn't need to. The next morning, Lena found something in her bag. A photo of the two of us, age 12, standing by the old train tracks, holding hands. But something was wrong. The girl next to her wasn't me. Not really. Same smile, same clothes, but her head was tilted just a little too far. And her eyes, if you looked closely, had 6 reflections instead of 2. Lena burned the picture. It didn't catch fire, just turned to ice in her hands, and melted away. I no longer feel time the same way. My dreams blend into waking. I see her in the corners now. She doesn't hide anymore. She walks down the street in the daylight. She waves at people. They wave back. They don't know. I think she's preparing something. Crossing. A trade. And I think I'm almost hollow enough to let her through completely. Chapter 9, The Exchange. I stopped dreaming, because I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, she moved. Not just in the house or through mirrors, but in me. I could feel her fingers brushing against the inside of my skin. Stretching. Pressing. I think I only exist now because she's not ready yet. Lena is different too. Quiet. Still but alert. Like prey in a field of frost. She speaks less, but when she does, her voice cuts through the silence like a bell in the snow. She doesn't ask what I am anymore. She asks, "When?" And I have no answer. The frost reached the church last night. The bells froze solid. The priest stood in the pulpit and forgot the words. People wept during the sermon and didn't know why. The dead refuse to stay warm. They freeze in the earth. They whisper through their own tombstones. The town is dying from the inside out, and nobody sees it, because the snow blinds. That night, I went back to the clearing, the one where the crash happened. I went alone. No coat, no boots, just skin and silence. The trees stood black against the sky, and in the center of the clearing, the hole was back. Wider now, breathing. The wind didn't blow, but the air moved inward, like the earth was inhaling. And then, I stepped forward. She was waiting, the other me, standing at the edge of the hole, barefoot, frostbitten, smiling. Behind her, the snow fell upward. She raised her hand. I raised mine, and we spoke at the same time. "We are ready." Then came Lena. She burst into the clearing, breath ragged, snow clinging to her hair. "Anya, no!" I turned, both of me, and she saw it, the split. 2 bodies, 1 soul, cracked like glass, reflected, refracted, and she understood. She would have to choose. One of us would stay. One would go. One would take her. The other me stepped forward. Voice like mine, but cleaner, colder, perfect. "You never loved her like I did," she said to me. "I never needed her," I replied. Lena's eyes flicked between us. Tears froze on her cheeks. "How do I know?" she whispered. "Which one is?" She didn't finish, because she didn't need to. She looked at me, only me, and said, "You're still shivering." She reached for my hand, and the other me screamed, a sound that shattered the frost from the trees, that split the sky, that turned the snow to ash in the air. She lunged. I stepped between them, and the hole took her. The frost collapsed inward like a throat, a vortex of silence. Her body folded, vanished, screaming not in fear, but in rage, as if we had stolen something she was promised. Then silence. Real silence. No breath, no cold, just winter. We stayed there a long time, Lena and I, holding hands, watching the last snowflakes fall like feathers from a torn sky. She asked finally, "Is it over?" And I said, "I don't know," because I wasn't sure who answered. Epilogue, beneath the snow. There is a girl who walks the streets of a town that doesn't remember how to melt. She doesn't cast breath in the cold. Mirrors hesitate to reflect her. Her room is always freezing, no matter the heat. People say she died once, came back. They say it was a miracle, but they don't hear the whispers at night. They don't see the frost creep under the doors. They don't know what waits in the cracks of the ice when no one is looking. She does, because she brought it with her. And one day, she'll have to take someone back.